Have you ever drifted so far from God that it felt like He'd stopped listening to your prayers? Have you ever stood at the edge of faith, unsure if you could take another step without Him? Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to see how this young woman discovered that no matter how silent things may seem, God is always ready to listen. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled between rolling hills, lived a young woman named Sarah. Sarah was known for her radiant smile and her unwavering faith in God. She had a heart full of kindness and a spirit that seemed to glow with an otherworldly light. From the time she was a little girl, Sarah's life was a testament to her deep religious beliefs. Every morning she woke up before sunrise to pray. She'd kneel beside her bed and talk to God about everything, her hopes, her dreams, and even her fears. Her faith wasn't just confined to morning prayers. It was a way of life. She treated everyone with love and compassion, believing that every person was a child of God, deserving of kindness. Her belief in God was not a passive one. She actively engaged with her faith. She attended church regularly, participated in prayer groups, and even volunteered at a local soup kitchen, always eager to lend a helping hand to those in need. One day, tragedy struck. Sarah's father, whom she adored, fell gravely ill. Despite the constant prayers and the whole town's support, he passed away. Sarah was devastated. She questioned why God had taken her father, someone so full of life and goodness. Amidst her grief, she clung to her faith, trying to find solace in her prayers. As days turned into weeks, her grief began to subside, but it left a gaping hole in her heart. This was the first crack in her once impenetrable faith. Not long after her father's death, Sarah found herself confiding in her closest friend, Martha, sharing her pain and seeking comfort. Little did she know that this trust would be her undoing. Martha, consumed by jealousy, began to sow seeds of doubt in Sarah's mind, subtly suggesting that maybe God wasn't listening to their prayers. She spoke of other people's misfortunes and hinted that they, too, had prayed, but hadn't received answers. Sarah, already grappling with her own doubts, started to believe Martha's whispers. The silence of God in the face of her suffering began to feel deafening. For the first time, she started questioning God's love and His purpose. Days turned into months, and Sarah's prayers became less frequent, her silences around God longer. The warmth of her faith had dimmed, replaced by a cold, hard knot of doubt in her chest. One evening, Sarah found herself at a local cafe, lost in thought. She ordered a cup of tea, its warmth doing little to thaw the chill in her heart. As she sat there nursing her tea, she watched the people around her, each absorbed in their own stories. A sudden surge of loneliness washed over her. She realized that despite being surrounded by people, she was utterly alone. No one knew the turmoil that raged within her. In that moment of utter despair, she longed for God's comforting embrace. But He seemed distant, His voice lost in the silence of her disbelief. Just then, a man approached her table. He introduced himself as David, a regular at the cafe. He was a kind-hearted man known for his warm smile and helpful nature. He noticed the sadness in Sarah's eyes, and without hesitation, he sat down next to her. He didn't pry into her thoughts, but simply listened patiently as she poured out her heart. She told him about her loss, her struggle with faith, and the creeping loneliness that threatened to engulf her. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face, releasing the pent-up emotions that had been suffocating her. When she finished, David didn't offer empty platitudes or religious platitudes. Instead, he shared his own story of faith and loss, of how he, too, had questioned God's plan during his own struggles. He spoke of finding strength in his faith, even in the darkest of times, and of the healing power of hope. After their conversation, David left, not before promising to keep her in his prayers. Sarah felt lighter, not because her pain had vanished, but because she realized she wasn't alone. There was someone who understood what she was going through. As the days passed, David became a regular visitor at the cafe, bringing with him not just coffee, but also words of comfort and faith. He never forced his beliefs on her, but his quiet strength and unwavering faith were a constant reminder of the God she had turned away from. Slowly, very slowly, the walls around Sarah's heart started to crumble. The silences between her and God seemed less daunting, the path to faith less intimidating. One evening, as they sat in the cafe, a soft melody filled the air. It was an old hymn, one that Sarah had sung countless times in her church choir. The music resonated with her soul, stirring emotions she had long buried. She looked at David, who was lost in the music, his eyes closed, his face serene. In that moment, she felt a longing for the God who had seemed so distant. The song ended and Sarah found herself drawn to the piano where an elderly gentleman was playing. She asked him to play the hymn again, wanting to immerse herself in the music. As the notes filled the cafe, Sarah couldn't hold back her tears. They flowed freely, cleansing her of the pain and doubt that had been holding her back. It was as if the song had unlocked the floodgates of her emotions. When the song ended, Sarah turned to David. In that moment, she realized how much she missed God, how much she needed his love and guidance. The silence between them now seemed charged with meaning. She felt a strength building within her, urging her to reach out to God, to break the silence that had become her prison. With trembling hands, she reached out for her Bible, its worn pages a testament to her past faith. As she read the verses, they echoed the sentiments of her heart. She prayed, her voice catching in her throat, whispering her pain, her confusion, and most importantly, her longing for God's forgiveness. The silence of the cafe seemed to amplify her words, making them more potent, more heartfelt. David sat beside her, not speaking, but his presence was a comfort. He understood that she needed to reconnect with God in her own way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah looked up from her Bible, her eyes shining with newfound determination. The silence around her no longer felt oppressive. It was filled with a different kind of peace. She realized that God had been waiting patiently for her to return, for her to break the silence. He hadn't given up on her, just as he wouldn't give up on any of us. In that small cafe, amidst the aroma of coffee and the murmur of conversations, Sarah experienced a profound sense of renewal. She knew her journey of faith was far from over, but she was ready to take the next step. The silence that had once separated her from God now seemed to be filled with his love and grace. Friends, no matter how distant you may feel from God, no matter how heavy your heart, he is always waiting for you to return. The silence of unanswered prayers is often just an invitation for a deeper conversation, a chance for renewed faith. Are you ready to whisper your prayers into the silence and listen for his gentle response? Let us know your thoughts below, and remember, you are loved beyond measure. Amen.